Basically, I was laid off. In order to achieve your full potential, you have to create something of your own. Sadly, in the industry, there are a lot of minority individuals in construction that are extremely talented. They don't get the opportunities that I think they deserve, right? Some of them, they're not good at marketing themselves. Some of them don't communicate very well. Despite that, they have the raw talent. And given the opportunity, they would perform and they would excel, you know? So I would like to gather these individuals.
Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of the Halak Show, and today's guest is very different from what we have presented so far in the first two episodes. My today's guest, he was a math teacher and then he transitioned, something clicked, and you know it's a calling, and he had a calling and he moved into an engineering background, and he's not a normal engineer. He builds things like all engineers, but he's more towards construction side, and a very interesting person, at least on the paper. And we are going to now bring out his personality to what he does, and lots to unpack because it's always fun when, you know, we bring in people who build things. Similar to the show, he has had a rich life and we'll try to unpack. And I'm not going to give you a lot of insight because I want him to talk about it, but he has had running from Tiffany Co. construction. He has worked on Borgata Casino, if you guys know where that is, Madison Square Garden, just to name a few. And lots more. He has worked on multi-billion dollar projects, million-dollar projects through his illustrious career. I have 4 pages of this that should tell you there's a lot of information that we're going to cover today. So without further ado, let me first welcome Anthony Reneaud. Anthony, welcome to my show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
Yeah, is this the first podcast?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome. I treat all of them as my first. So, you know, I'm as equally excited to have a conversation and dive into it. So lots to talk about, Anthony. I know in the off camera we were talking about something common with us, and cricket coincidentally became a common talking ground for one of those things. Growing up in Trinidad, let's start with that. That's your journey started, right? Were you always like, is Trinidad big into cricket? And is that how you knew cricket, or
absolutely. When I was a boy, my father was interested in sports, and I go to see football matches with him and cricket matches.
Okay.
Those were the days, Sobers and Griffith and Hall, when West Indies were at the helm.
Right. Andy Flower.
Andy Flower came after.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So you were at a point math teacher when you were back in Trinidad. Is that what the journey started?
Well, the journey started when I was 5 years old.
Okay.
When I was 5 years old, I was always interested in construction. Okay. I recall creating a truck from tin clim and using the bobbins as wheels of the truck, pulling it through my neighborhood. You know, I was always interested in construction.
So you were always interested in building something?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So very contrast to what you have worked on versus the kind of construction that used to be in Trinidad, right?
Yeah.
And can you paint us a picture? Was it like...
Well, first, let me talk to you about my background in Trinidad, right?
Right.
It so happened that my grandfather was a builder in Trinidad. Right? He was what you call a master builder. Okay. And his son, who learned construction on his own, he was a very good he was an excellent contractor too. Right? His name was Martin Luby. One of the big construction companies in Trinidad is Emile Elias. And I recall having an interview with Emile Elias, and he said, you know, I learned construction from your uncle, from Martin Luby, you know. And I remember in Trinidad, we are big on carnival. Right. And at a carnival party, I met the then Prime Minister, Patrick Manning. He's now deceased, you know. Right. So I said, Patrick, you know, let's talk, you know. I'm an engineer, I live in New York, and I want to talk about the country. So we scheduled a meeting in his office when we were talking about construction. And I mentioned my uncle's name, Martin Luby. He said, Martin Luby built my house.
The then Prime Minister.
Yeah, the then Prime Minister.
Right, okay.
Yeah. So it's something that I always wanted to do.
Right.
In Trinidad, the University of the West Indies has the Faculty of Engineering, and every year they take in about 200 new engineers. And you have everybody from the West Indies, from Jamaica, from Grenada, from St. Lucia, from all the islands, competing for those 200 spaces.
The seats.
Yeah.
Right.
You have about, 20,000 students competing, so it's very competitive. Right. So they take they take the best and the brightest.
Right.
For me, I mean, it was a dream to get into engineering. You know, when I was accepted in school of engineering, I was ecstatic for that whole year.
Right.
You know, although I mean the work was grueling. You had to go to school. You had 14-hour days. You had to draw at night. I mean,
right.
And some of the courses, I mean, were excruciating. You know.
How many years is this course?
Well, if you don't repeat, and most students repeat, it will take you 3 years. Yeah.
3 years. Oh wow,
Yeah,
3 years.
yeah,
Great.
yeah.
Oh my God.
Some students take 5 years because they would repeat first year, they repeat second year.
Right.
Yeah.
I've always had this curious question, since we're talking about like school right now.
Yeah.
For learning construction,
Yeah.
is it more of a practical that you also have to do as a part of these 3 years program?
Absolutely.
Like
yeah.
actually go somewhere and build something?
Well, there's a lab. There are lab sessions.
Okay.
Yeah, that you have to, there are lab courses that you have to take, and you have to pass those courses, in order to pass the particular course.
Right.
Yeah.
20,000 to 200 seems a very
Yeah.
cream that gets selected into it, right?
Yeah, sure.
And then you went through this program, and then how did math come into it? Because that's one thing that I am very intrigued.
Well, in fact, during my years as an engineering student, most students, their parents are alive and they're supported by their parents, right? My dad died when I was 17 years old, right? And while I was studying engineering, prior to going into engineering, after I graduated high school, I taught math for 3 years, right? So I had a math background.
Okay.
So while I was studying engineering, I used to teach math at evenings at the night school.
Okay.
Yeah, so I basically supported myself.
Gotcha. Okay.
During engineering.
Right.
Yeah.
And like when we were talking about like, did you just math was just a side hustle that you were doing just on the side, or was it something that, why only math?
Well, that was my background, and there was a need for it, the evening school.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's just side money, so you can pay for your courses and you can
Absolutely.
work your way around building it.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Awesome. And then after you completed your construction school, after you graduated, did you just work in Trinidad for a while?
Yes.
Or was my move to New York right away? Or US?
I worked for Trinidad for a while. I worked for couple engineering companies, and then the recession hit. Right? Coupled with the recession, the recession caused a downturn in the economy.
Right.
And at that point in time, a young lady that I was dating, she migrated to the United States.
Okay.
To pursue a medical career.
Right.
And so I left Trinidad for two reasons: because of the downturn economy, and because of this ex-girlfriend.
Right.
Who by the way she's a doctor now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So it turned out good for both of you because
I wouldn't say it turned out good, because we broke up,
Yeah, I mean, but professionally it turned out to be
professionally. It turned out
but it's never easy to. That's a very good way of looking at it. But professionally, it worked out
Absolutely.
for both of you.
Absolutely.
You're doing both great in your
Absolutely.
current future.
Yeah.
I mean, current times.
Yeah.
All right, and so it's very contrast building in Trinidad versus like some of the things that are very big on your portfolio that you have been involved in, right? How different? How did you adjust to that difference?
Yeah, it's very different. I mean, in the United States, there's so much more regulations, so much more rules, so much more protocols.
Okay.
In Trinidad, I mean, I wouldn't say it's lax, but there are not
that
many restrictions.
Right. And did you study so when you go to school for learning construction or learning like architecture, learning engineering?
Engineering, yeah.
Do they teach you how to think about designs, how to think about building different things differently? Because every country would have its own protocol. So do you have to do any kind of certification or course here as well in the US, or do they accept?
No, not really. My engineering degree was accepted here.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
And how did you get in? So when you came here,
it's an interesting story. When I came here undocumented.
Right.
And one Sunday I was listening to an ad, and the lawyer, when I went to see the lawyer, he said that the Board of Ed needs teachers.
Okay.
So I went to the Board of Ed, met with the chancellor, and I sent him a copy of my transcript. And prior to getting into the faculty of engineering, I spent a year doing pure and applied maths.
Okay.
Right? So my math credit in engineering, coupled with the math that I did pre-engineering, was equivalent to someone who has a degree in mathematics here. So I was qualified to teach math in the high school. So I was sponsored by the board head.
Okay.
Yeah. And
Okay.
And I taught for 3 years. In fact, I got my green card after the first year, but I was obligated to teach for 3 years, so fulfill my obligation. And then I transitioned into construction.
Okay. That's very interesting. Math still again came to rescue.
Yes.
When you were back there, when you were trying to make a living, this time you were trying to do this for a completely different reason, right?
Yeah.
And then how did so when you started your journey in as an engineering here in the US?
In construction. I started in construction management.
And is all of your current operations only in US, your main market?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because now you have a company, which we're going to talk about a bit. So walk us through. So you have worked, this is crazy to me, because somebody like me who just has seen these buildings from outside. In fact, for Madison Square Garden, I went to see one of the Knicks, when Knicks were playing.
Yeah.
I went to see the game, right? Let's break this down a little bit of your involvement in these projects, right? So can you talk, first, I'm definitely intrigued by Madison Square Garden. So it's a very iconic building.
Of course, yeah.
And what was your involvement, if you can talk anything about your experience?
Yeah, well,
in renovation.
My involvement was way back in 1988, 89. Right?
I was born in 1987. Oh my God.
In fact, since then, I think that there was a renovation since then.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you were, and how old is Madison Square Garden? Do you know?
I have.
It's quite old, right?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to research after this. But so, how were you involved in this? Like, were you actually in a renovation of the Madison Square Garden back then?
Yeah. Well, the way how construction works in New York City, you have the owner, right? That would hire a construction manager.
Okay.
Right. That would hire subcontractors. Right.
Gotcha. Okay.
So I work for the construction manager. So I manage some of the the contractors that were doing the work.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
How do timelines work, like when it comes to such buildings which are massive as Madison Square Garden? Is it very tight? Is it very stressful? Because you're
Absolutely, construction is always stressful because you have so many players involved. You have so many different entities that you have to coordinate with, and there are standard problems that come up, but sometimes unforeseen problems come up.
Okay.
And then you have to that in conjunction with dealing with myriad different personalities.
Right. People management.
Yeah, yes. I think construction has a disproportionate individuals with big egos. Yeah.
So let me ask you this. When I went to college,
Yeah.
I'm an economist by a degree.
Yeah.
But I'm into a completely different field right now, right? When obviously it's very different reading something in a book. Let's say you cannot memorize, because there's so many protocols, right? And nothing can replace experience of you actually physically being there and doing it.
Yeah.
How do you see that in your degree, what you studied in Trinidad, and then what you actually are doing over the course of years?
Well,
what's your take on it?
Okay, in college, in university, you study theoretical. As an engineer, you understand what formulas you have to use, etc., etc. But in your real world, right? I think the real world is people centric. You have to deal with people. You have to deal with personalities. There where the challenge comes in. I always say this. In construction, even if you have absolutely no knowledge of construction and you know how to manage people,
right,
you'll be able to get by, because it's a people-oriented business. You have to know how to talk to people.
Right.
You have to know what makes them tick, how to motivate them, and you have to understand also that people are different. Some people, you have to understand that some people have certain strengths and certain weaknesses, right? So you let them focus on things that fall into that area where they are strong, right? Like, for example, there are some project managers who they're good at running meetings, right? They're good with people. There are some project managers, they don't want to deal with people at all, but they want to write letters, right? And go through drawings,
Right.
So you have to recognize that.
Right.
Yeah.
So and it's very rightly said, because I think a lot of professions, it's all about like until when the human comes into play, and there's all different minds that are getting involved.
Yeah.
And even when there are hierarchies in place, it's very important that you satisfy all these hierarchies.
Yes.
Only then you have a successful project at the end of the day,
Yeah.
right? You also have Borgata Casino And you also have like you worked on Tiffany Co, which is also very iconic buildings, right? When you pass by some of these places that you worked on, what do you brag about the most?
Well, I've got a sense of pride,
Right.
Like when I go to Atlantic City, and I go there, I guess couple times a year,
Right.
there's a sense of pride that you were part of this, that you contributed to this, and of course you would think about how it was, because like where the Borgata currently sits was wasteland.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's a very beautifully done. I visited it once or twice.
Yeah.
You were saying you were also a professional safety certified, right? There is a bunch of safety. How do you look at safety in construction these days versus what it was when you were working, let's say in 1998? Has it drastically changed?
It has changed a lot. Now safety is emphasized much more. There's more attention to safety. There's more training involved for both, the supervisor and the workers. It's a whole different dynamic.
Okay.
Yeah. And I was fortunate to have worked as a site safety manager. In fact, I got my site safety manager when I was working Lemon Bovis. Right? It was Lemon Bovis. Then it became Lend-Lease. Then it became Lend-Lease, and recently it was sold to another company. It was sold to Consigli, right?
Right.
Yeah, and I got my safety manager there when I was working at Lend-Lease.
Okay.
Yeah. But at that was way back in 1997, and it was so much easier to get your site safety manager's license. Now, I mean, getting the site safety manager is a big deal. They would do a background check on you. You'd have to prove that you work on major buildings, with pay stubs, etc. It's
Right.
a real big deal.
And so the New York City has a very typical different style of like building, right? And no matter earthquake, hurricanes, because so much windy. What is so special about the way the buildings are? Is it something different that the way it is built in New York City? The one building troubles, the other building is so close to each other.
Well,
how is it able to withstand so much?
Well, I mean, as a structural engineer, when a building design, you have to design for all the possible occurrences. So you design for earthquake, you design for the wind, hurricane, etc., etc. Yeah.
So we had a firefighter, right?
Yeah.
Who we called up on the show, and he was giving us some understanding of how the houses are built today. They are poor as compared to the way they were built in the olden times, because they would take time to build. I mean, they will allow like concrete to set in, then the base will be strong, and then they will build the house on top of it, right? Where it started was, I asked him that, okay, houses in India are built with like bricks. They don't have too much wooden stuff that we build it with. Here the houses are built with like wood, and a lot of wood involved in building the houses, right? And he was saying that the way it was done in the past, it's very different from how it is done now. So what I was going to ask you was...
So was he saying is better?
It's not better now. It was better. He's saying the way the base was built of the house was stronger.
Okay.
They were able to withstand.
Okay.
But now it is they take a lot of protocols into consideration, but the houses they can catch a fire quicker.
Okay.
Is the way they're constructed. And again, they're completely two different things, because yours is more commercial. He was talking more about like, the current houses. So what I was trying to get at, right? With so many protocols into play, how can an architect bring his vision to life? Because architect would be thinking outside the box. They would have a lot of different factors. Do they also have to go through all this protocol training and everything before they are designing something?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Do you work with them?
Yeah, of course. You have a developer that would have a vision. You would hire an architect, and the architect, he may hire both the architect and the engineer, or he may hire the architect and the architect would hire the engineer. So the architect would work closely with the engineer, because the architect, he's concerned with form, structure, aesthetics, how the building looks. Right? Okay. Right. The use of the space. But the engineer is concerned with structural stability. So the engineer would get the preliminary sketch from the architect, right? And he would decide, where the footing is going to be located, where the columns and beams and the connection details.
Right.
He would do calculations to come up with, the size of the columns, beams, etc., etc.
Yeah. So after 35 years in the game, right, Renant Antren Corp.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that. So why did you choose to, have your own company?
Well, I started the Borgata, right? At the height of the construction, there were about 70 individuals in the office that were part of the construction management team. Right? And nearing the end of the project, one of the top execs called me in, right? And he said, you have about maybe 3 more weeks in the project. And he said, the company, I'm not going to call the company name. He said, they're sending one of their boys from New York to take your place. Yeah. So basically I was laid off. Right? And the work that I did on that project was phenomenal. You know, I mean, right. I had to be there 7 o'clock in the morning. Right. When I felt I was behind, I would be there 5 o'clock. You know,
right.
I would work hours. You know, I came up with systems that didn't exist. Right. And so I decided that in order to achieve your full potential, you have to create something of your own. You cannot turn to a company to hire you and give you opportunities to grow and to use, you know, the full range of your abilities. You have to do that for yourself.
Right.
You know, so that was the idea behind forming my own company.
Okay. And that's very interesting. A lot of times setbacks can, if you are just looking for the next step, setbacks will show you some other route.
Yeah.
And it's very courageous that, you know, you think of, you know, now that you have so much experience.
It goes back to my work ethic, right? When I was doing my MBA, I was exposed to a philosophy known as Kaizen, right? And with Kaizen, essentially, you try to be better today than you try to be better today than you were yesterday, and tomorrow you try to be better than you are today. Right. You know, so it's a philosophy of constant improvement. You always try to improve.
Right.
So when I do things, I ask myself, you know, is there a better way of doing this?
Right.
If there is a better way of doing it, why am I not using the better way of doing it?
Right.
So you always look at what you're doing, you know, from a sort of critical point of view.
Right.
Yeah, you just don't settle, you know. And in my life, I always try to be better and not settle. You know, I'm not comfortable with just being, you know, good.
Right.
You know, just getting by. You know, I want to be the best.
Right.
Whatever I do, I'm driven to be the best. I'm driven to excel.
Right. What is the vision of Renant Antren Corp now that you have your own company? Previously, you were trying to fulfill other people's vision. Now you have your own vision for your company, right? What do you see that?
Well, sadly, in the industry, there are a lot of minority individuals in construction that are extremely talented. They don't get the opportunities that I think they deserve, right?
Right.
Some of them, they're not good at marketing themselves, right? And some of them don't communicate very well, right?
Right.
Right? But despite that, they have the raw talent, right? And given the opportunity, they would perform and they would excel, you know? So I would like to gather these individuals and have them work for Renant Antren.
Gotcha.
Yeah. I think life is a very, very interesting journey, and we have to strive to enjoy the journey.
Right.
And make the best of it.
Right.
Know? Despite how much money we have, what phase you're in life, we all have challenges. We all have things that we think could be better.
Right.
You know, and we have to accept that.
Gotcha.
And just enjoy the journey, and we have to try to be good to each other.
Right.
You know, I mean, there's only one commandment, you know.
Right.
Love thy neighbor as thyself. And if you love your neighbor, you wouldn't steal from him, you wouldn't hurt him, you wouldn't fight him.
Right.
You know, there'd be no more wars. You know, the world would be a very, very beautiful place if people follow that commandment.
Right.
You
right.
know? Do unto others as you would like have done unto you.
Right.
And I firmly believe in the law of karma.
Okay.
I think the more good you do, the more good things will happen to you.
Right.
And that's the way I live my life. You know?
No, and we hope and pray.
Yeah.
After this is done,
yeah,
you become like that big. What I just said, you're a big. I'm going to manifest that for you. That Renant Antren Corp is a big company, right? And hopefully, when I see you next time down the line, you know, you tell me that yeah, those words kind of worked, right? You never know. What's your typical Sunday? Do you work 7 days a week now that you have your own company?
First, let's talk about my philosophy, right? Okay. I think the most important thing in life is to have balance.
Right.
Okay? And balance means making time to do the things you enjoy.
Right.
Right? And I try to do that. I try to have balance in my life.
Right.
Right? On Sundays, I would go to church. I'm a Catholic.
Right, that's great.
I go to St. Patrick's Cathedral. I go to High Mass at 10:15. The Mass that's, at most times, it's conducted by the Archbishop, Timothy Dolan. He's an excellent speaker.
Right.
And, and if I can't go, I would listen to the service online.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I make time for, the lady in my life,
Right.
I rest, but I'm a professional. So when I have a job to do, the job would take priority. I'll be up 2 o'clock in the morning if I have to, 3 o'clock in the morning. I'll pull an all-nighter.
Right.
The job comes first.
Right. Got it. And when do you end up taking like multiple projects at the same time? Because you have a big company now, right? How do you...
Well, that's correct. My company is not big.
But if you have your own company...
I want to make it big.
let's say your company, when you have to take multiple projects, right? Yeah. How do you keep up with everything? Because I don't know how construction world works. To me, it sounds very nerve-wracking, a lot of pressure.
Yeah, there were times in the past where I felt the pressure.
Right.
Yeah. But I think one of the important things when you're a manager, you have to learn to delegate.
Right.
You can't do it all, and you have to know how to delegate.
Okay.
Right. There are some people you delegate the bulk of the work to, but before it goes out to the client, you take the time to double check it.
Right.
You must do that.
Right.
Yeah. So and micromanage. In some cases, you have to micromanage. In other cases, you don't micromanage.
Right.
Yeah.
And safety, because you've been certified into lying to be more safer, right? Do you at times have to like impose or step in when it comes to like safety protocols and everything, or do people who are construction workers who have gone to that safety, they would have also had to go to some kind of safety training, right? Is it easier for them to just follow the protocols, or a lot of times people just forget?
At times you have to pull someone up, say, listen, where's your safety glasses?
Right.
Where's your gloves?
Right.
But because of the onus and the importance that construction managers and owners put on safety, it's easier to manage, and it's easier to manage the safety on the job.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, great.
I don't know if you're familiar with it. This book is called The Prophet.
The Prophet.
By Khalil Gibran.
Okay.
Okay.
I have not read that.
Yeah, but you should read it.
Okay.
Right? People who have read The Prophet, they claim that if they could only have 2 books in their library, it would be the Bible and The Prophet. All right? Okay. Like I don't want to.
No, I get the context.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Like this is what he said about children, right? He said your children are not your children. They're the sons and daughters of life longing for itself. But most importantly, this is what he said. He said you may strive to be like them, but seek not to make them like you, for life goes not backwards.
Right.
And he talks about love, he talks about marriage, right? About work. This is what he said. In essence, he said, work is love made visible. And when you work with love, you bind yourself to one another and to God. And if you cannot work with love, but with only distaste, then it's better you stand at the gates of the temple and take handouts from those who work with joy.
But what happens if you're in a situation where you don't love something, but you cannot do anything about it? You just have to...
Well, the idea is aspire to do something that you love.
Okay.
You never...
It will be a lifelong aspiration I'm sure for everybody, right?
Yeah,
nobody's ever satisfied.
Yeah.
That's the problem in these times.
Yeah.
This is rapid fire for Anthony. Whatever comes to your mind, say it. We're not going to stop to debate about it. After the rapid fire is done, then we'll see if anything that stands out for us, right? So math teacher to skyline shaper. What's one weird thing you built at home and no boarding shelves?
I didn't build anything weird at home.
Yeah, you build the world, but sometimes when you look back...
No, nothing weird at home.
First NYC construction day, what went totally nuts or hilariously perfect?
Don't recall.
Okay. Tiffany, MSG, or Museum of Natural History, which projects your dinner party flex?
Museum of Natural History.
I want to talk about that, but that's fine. We'll come back. Ever had a project so wild you missed teaching fractions, like spill it? So have you had any project which was like so crazy that you had to, cut through and because of the timeline or anything like that?
No, I don't take shortcuts.
Okay. What's one myth that people believe about New York, which is wrong when it comes to construction?
when it comes to construction, everybody in construction is knowledgeable and knows what they're doing.
Okay. Safety, you're a safety guru with millions of hats. Like you play different roles.
Okay.
Do you ever mix them up?
No.
Passing Tiffany's, do you strut proud or do you squint at the ceiling of the cracks? Like do you...
Strut proud.
Okay. So let's say that's not in the blueprint, but they're going to ask you to build something. Have you ever done that?
No, you have to follow the blueprint.
If NYC was a person, what its vibe and how hard it is to build for that drama queen? How is it like building in New York? So if New York City has a personality, what kind of a person would that be?
Very difficult.
Renant Antren Corp, in 3 words, how would you describe it?
Responsive, professional, efficient.
And someone asks what you do, say, I build stuff, or point at the skyline and mic drop, that's me. If someone asks you what you do you say, I build stuff, or do you just point at the skyline?
I would say I build stuff.
You build stuff? Okay. Awesome. Well, that's time. When somebody asks you, I mean, there has to be like, do you take away anything from your previous project and you try to suggest or recommend in the new projects, or you're always looking at only what architects gives you?
No, I always try to improve. Yeah.
So do you, not in terms of like improvement, but like from, let's say from a design perspective as well. If architects design something, like the architect had a vision, right? Like they take the builder's vision,
yeah,
and then they create something on a paper.
Yeah.
And then you have to take that paper and then start building it.
Right.
Do you ever like suggest architects that, okay, hey, listen, this is what I saw?
Well, I mean, if there could be an improvement, I would make a suggestion to the architect, yes. Yeah.
In their design?
Yeah.
And are the architects usually like open to collaboration and listening?
Some of them are open. Some of them are stubborn and stuck in their ways.
Okay. So they have a very specific way that they feel like the builder wants and they want to pride. Okay. So you do give architects the opportunity to, prettify whatever they've already created.
Sure.
Okay. Awesome. I have one more segment that I want to talk to you about. When I hear Trinidad, right? And this is again my impression is that the people, like you use the word carnivals, and my impression is that people in Trinidad, that region of the world, are generally very happy and fun-loving people, right? Do you feel, can you enlighten me? Are they hiding stuff and that's why they look to joy to sort of try and make that any kind of pain or any kind of bad day that they're having go easier? It's that like the mindset of people?
Yeah, it's true that we are fun-loving people. We are friendly. We are different from New Yorkers. And the country right now is not what it used to be. There's too much crime in the country right now. And too much gangs. Sadly. Yeah. So I think the mood in the country, there's been a change of government right now, and I think the population is experiencing buyer's remorse. They thought it would have been better, right? But they yet to see the improvements in the country. Yeah.
Okay. So thanks everyone for tuning in. I hope you guys enjoyed this. In our conversation, Anthony did spill a lot of information regarding the construction industry and some facts I did not know, which I learned as well. And, hope you guys gained something out of it. If you like this episode, please like, share, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. I'll see you guys in the next episode. This is your host, Halak, and you just watched a brand new podcast episode on The Halak Show. See you guys in the next episode. It's me signing off.